Hey, we haven't done this show in a little while. The Death Lineup, talking Warriors hoop. This has been a very newsworthy less summer, I feel. I think everything happened, and then all of a sudden, nothing has happened. Even the schedule coming out and the midseason tournament information, that didn't really even. I feel like the NFL's when they do stuff like this is just way bigger, and people talk about it way more. I didn't sense that from the NBA stuff. Did you?
I guess I didn't. No, I feel like some of the teams made their own individual schedule release type of marketing videos, but other than that, no, I haven't seen that many people. Like even last year, I felt like we were way more hyped about it as a franchise, as a fan base, than it seems like we are this year. So yeah, I have no clue what that means. If that means it was just a not as much of a storyline summer where two of the biggest storylines of the summer are just in limbo, with Lillard and Harden on where they'll end up. So maybe that's stalling a little bit of the hype.
And even like, let's say the Damian Lillard trade happened, it's still not a giant story. Like Lillard is a top 15, top 20 player. It's not like he's a top 5 player. Same with Harden. If this was Harden 5 years ago, maybe, but none of the big names really. I feel like Chris Paul going to the Warriors is kind of like more interesting than what
Yeah.
happens with Lillard because
I think it's something about Miami though, right? Like if you talked about Lillard going to Boston or Lillard going to the Lakers or Lillard going to even Philadelphia, like that, I feel like that's a way bigger storyline than for some reason the Zombie Heat just it doesn't feel like the big market that it should feel like.
and and it should especially because they were in the finals this year and still I think people see them as like the secret the secretly good team that is just with this unit. You know who they kind of remind me of, and this is a weird crossover for sports, but they kind of remind me of the Giants from a baseball perspective because the Giants have a lot of money, great market, yet they try and win on the margins almost to a detriment, and they don't really have that star to bail them out. And similarly with Miami, like the sum of the parts is great, and Jimmy Butler as a top guy is pretty darn good, but they just don't have that one sexy player that makes them like the national favorite. Like no one's saying, "Oh, clearly the Heat's winning the NBA championship." Like no one's saying that going into this year. And so maybe that's what Lillard would have been for them, is to be like, that's the one guy that they would get that people would go, okay, they're gonna win the title, or they're gonna get back to the finals. But not being able to pull the trigger on that deal, it just has them feeling like the same old Heat to me.
And that's what they feel like, the same old Heat like every year. So I don't know why Jimmy Butler can't get the national love that some of these other guys get. Like, sure, maybe his game's not the most entertaining. Maybe he's not the 3-point shooter. He's not the crazy dunker, but he has a great personality and he's like really funny. And, he just turns into like a top 5 player every time the playoffs come around. So I'm not entirely sure why he can't get that appraised. And maybe it is his play style. But again, he's so fun to watch when he's just going at Drew Holiday and hitting tough mid-range shots and getting in people's faces.
He's not in shoe commercials. That's why he's not in the big brands that a lot of the star players are. Like, think about what Steph has done this summer. He was marketing. He was for his documentary. He's going on podcasts.
Steph doesn't feel like a fair comparison, though.
No, but I'm just saying the national players, like Jimmy Butler's not
Okay,
doing
but
any of that stuff.
what has Devin Booker done? And he feels like someone who has that.
He's got his own shoe coming out for one. The book one is
I
coming
had
out.
no idea.
Yeah, he's got that. But yeah, I mean, he's a little bit low key too. He's not, he's not super out there yet, but he's still pretty young. But I guess I just feel like for whatever reason, the NFL, Aaron Rodgers could, uh, you know, go to the restroom and it's like a story all over the internet. And yet for basketball, like it's almost like they're trying so hard to do that and they just can't do it. And football's king, so it's not the greatest comparison, but yeah, I just found this summer to be, I don't know, a little slow. Even the FIBA stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the Basketball World Cup. Like Ant Edwards is getting a little bit of love coming out of that thing, but nobody's really covering it. The Athletic only has one beat writer. It's not an important tournament, but I just feel like if you said, "Oh, we're doing this football world league," and some who would be like a Ant Edwards comparison in the NFL, Jamar Chase is leading this team. Like I feel like it'd get some pretty good coverage, but the poor FIBA is not. But you know what did get some amazing coverage, and this got like a few days of coverage, and I was so surprised. Steph Curry goes on Gilbert Arenas' podcast. I didn't even know Gilbert Arenas had a podcast. Gilbert Arenas, former Warrior. He does his podcast, and he basically asks Steph about if he is the best point guard in the history of the NBA. And what would Steph possibly have said other than yes? You expect him to say no? So all of this stuff gets crazy covered. Stephen A. Smith agreed with Steph and said yes. And then Michael Jordan texted Stephen A. Smith and said, it's got to be Magic. Here's my problem with this comparison. I don't really consider Steph Curry to be a traditional point guard. Like, if you wanted to compare styles of play or maybe impact on the game, you'd probably move LeBron to the Magic comparison, Magic and Larry comparison, and you'd move Michael Jordan to the Steph Kobe stuff. Like, there's those are the two buckets that I sort of see as far as impact. But Steph's not a traditional point guard. He didn't bring the basketball up. Draymond Green is the traditional point guard on this basketball team.
Yeah. It's tough because, obviously I want to go Curry, but I didn't watch Magic. Me growing up, like before the whole Curry thing, when he got drafted, it was, my grandpa always telling me, oh, Magic, Bird, or you, Magic, Bird, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain.
And I didn't see
Mike,
Bill or Wilt. So
yeah. It's kind of tough when you didn't get to watch the player play, but I do know that, I mean, I don't want to take a slight at Magic, but how many did he get with Kareem, who we all pretty much say is a top 6-7 player of all time?
He got all of his titles with Kareem. He did not win one without Kareem.
So Steph was able to do 2 with KD, 2 without, and KD's not even regarded as a top 10 player of all time. I just feel like Steph, the way he changed the game, like Gilbert Arenas talks about, is that you don't see kids trying to be Magic, you see kids trying to be Steph, and that doesn't mean anything about best player of all time. That just shows who's changed the game more. But that, along with what he was able to do with the roster he had, and he was able to beat, what people believe, it seems like 50% of the population believes is the greatest player of all time. So I think Steph's had a better legacy. But I could still see, like, I don't know. It's Magic probably beats Steph 1-on-1, I guess. I don't know. That debate, it feels a little pointless. But, Magic's the 6. How tall was Magic?
Like
6'9",
yeah.
6'9" point guard that kind of went out of fashion and now for some reason coming back into fashion, and it works with Josh Giddey, with Anthony Black, like some of the tall point guards are coming back. But yeah, I think I don't know.
Do you know Steph has already played more seasons than Magic played? Because when he got HIV, he missed 4 seasons and they tried to make a comeback. But Magic only played 13 seasons, and Steph has already played 14 seasons. He's going on his 15th season now. Steph got injured. There's bits and pieces.
Steph's missed like 3 of those seasons.
Yeah, a few years there. I think that there's 2 things. I don't even want this to be a point guard debate because, again, Magic is playing point guard, but also Magic is playing power forward and center against the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs because Kareem is out. So, like, the way their play styles aren't even they're not even close to where you can compare them. Again, it's Magic and LeBron for me. That's the true comparison. the thing that swings the player per player against player to Magic right now, and Steph's not done yet, is he's got 5 rings, Steph's got 4. The other thing is he's been in the finals, or he was in the finals 9 times. So he was 5-4 in the finals. Steph is 4-2. So the league was smaller. Obviously, there were less teams. You had the Lakers and the Celtics were the heavies of the league. They had just crazy rosters. So that, there's a comparison that is not exactly apples to apples either. But I think if Steph gets that 5th ring, or if he makes a couple more trips to the finals, I think he's absolutely 100% in the argument of what would be considered the top 10 players in the NBA. I think that is a better argument than who was the best point guard, who was the best shooting guard, who was the best small forward. Like when you get into like terms of top 10, top 15 of all time, I think Steph, I don't know what people consider Steph to be now, but probably outside of that top 10. If he gets another ring, I think he's inside of that top 10. Magic is considered somewhere in the top 6. I saw Bill Simmons's list of the top 6. I think he had Magic, Larry, Kareem, Bill Russell, LeBron, and I forget who and MJ, obviously. So that's like considered the top 6. Steph isn't that far outside of that. And I think another ring gets him there. Another couple finals appearances could possibly get him there as well. And then you're sort of in the Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq range of players. So it's but this is just what happens when you don't have anything going on is you ask Steph a question and he's like, yeah, me. And then it just creates content. Has Magic said anything about this? Have you seen anything from Magic?
I have not.
I wonder if you compare bank accounts because Magic kind of set
Magic's
the table.
like an owner.
Yeah, for all of these athletes to make big money, he's set up the way to do it. So Magic is like, all I care about is bank account. Who's winning in the bank? All right, so that was a little fun exercise in the not a whole lot stuff going on in the league. But the Warriors, since the last time we talked, they dropped the schedule, and the Warriors open up against, of all teams, Phoenix. We were kind of wondering, was it going to be the Lakers? Was it going to be the Kings? And then they dropped Phoenix on us at home. And I think you made a joke and you were like, it's Phoenix because that will be the only way to make sure that Kevin Durant plays at Chase when there are fans.
Yeah. Finally, we can guarantee that. And then they also did Lakers versus Phoenix game 2 for both of them. So that finally guarantees Kevin Durant and LeBron James will play each other for the first time since like 2019. And fingers crossed, right? Like, something could happen, but I won't trust that KD is playing that Warriors game, the first game of the season, until I see him like tip off.
Keep him out of the layup line. Yeah. Yep. No layup line for KD.
Chris Paul revenge game.
Chris Paul revenge game. That's a good one. What about Klay Thompson and Devin Booker peace offering game?
That's good. Yeah,
because Klay even mentioned it in that podcast that we talked about on Podcast P, where he's like, yeah, I was in my feelings. My bad.
I just want them to hug before tip off.
Hug, but then, they both like rep Kobe, and Devin Booker, he tries to be a little bit of a version of the Black Mamba. He may not want to hug. He may just want to cut his throat and be like, nope, no apologies. We're going to beat you. We'll apologize after the game. But yeah, that would be a fun game to start the season. Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, so much history there. And they can market the hell out of it. So I think it was a smart thing overall, though. I did sort of like you. I expected Kings just because like that was the best of the early series in the playoffs. I mean, we were going to Chase and standing outside with all those people. It was so much fun. But I do think this was a smart one. They have some opportunities, and the I think it is the Denver is the Christmas game. That's the one where I'm a little flat on. I would have liked
should have been Sacramento.
Yeah, I wanted Sacramento or Lakers for that Christmas game.
Yeah, I agree.
And in Denver, so Everyone's going to be tired because of the elevation, and they're gonna want to just be anywhere but Denver for Christmas. So that's
Exactly.
that's not a great one for me.
Yeah.
And then the first SAC game is at home, 1st of November. That's when SAC comes to town. Their first road game is actually game 2 against Sacramento. So two quick first 2 weeks of the season, they play Sacramento twice. A nice little measuring stick there for both teams, I think, because Sacramento is probably going to want to just pace, and the Warriors just signed or just traded for a player who is sort of anti-pace in Chris Paul. So that'll be quite an interesting thing to see which wins, the pace or the not pace.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling Sacramento is going to come out like hungry,
guns a-blazing.
So I'm wondering, I feel like sometimes with these Warriors is that they don't like step up to that and match that when other teams like really want to take them out. And because it's for them, it's just like, oh, this is our X amount of season doing this together. This is only game 2 of the season. Like I'll rest up for, I don't have to go as crazy. But I mean, I hope, because those, even during the regular season, those were all fun games.
Yeah. To Sacramento, those games mean something, because again, even
It's a
last
little brother
year,
thing.
they were measuring stick games for them. And that'll continue to be the thing. So I don't think the Warriors play the Lakers until 2024, as far as I can tell. First game looks to be in January, late January at home, which is probably an ABC game. And then I think they play they only play 3 times.
Really?
I think. Unless I'm just misreading the schedule, because the way that I'm reading the schedule is they play the Clippers in late November, so that's not the Lakers. They play the Clippers back-to-back, a home and home, last day of November, and then December 2nd. So they get 2 games out of the Clippers, and then right after the in-game tournament, though, that week of the in-season tournament, then they play the Clippers again. So they play them 3 times in a span of looks like 3 weeks, or 2.5 weeks actually. So then, as far as the Lakers are concerned, that January 27th at home, then they played the Clippers again in February. So that's the 4 there.
Games.
So then January 27th at home, then they play the Lakers at home again right after the All-Star break.
So we're at 2?
And then we're at 2. And then they play on the road in LA March 16th. Okay, then April 9th. So they do play the Lakers 4 times.
This is kind of where like the baseball and football schedule with divisions and how you play your football division person twice a season.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball, I forget the number, but us having to play the Pacific Division, I think it is, 4 times each team. Like the Pacific Division is by far the best division in basketball. Like you had every single team from the Pacific Division make the playoffs last year. And the fact that we have to play those guys 4 times, LA, Phoenix, Clippers, Kings, like that's kind of brutal.
It's good though, and the reason it's good is because you're the Suns as well. Did you mention this?
Yeah, I did.
Suns?
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of like a iron sharpens iron kind of thing, in that I'm sure Steve Kerr is looking for opportunities to rest certain guys. You kind of can't rest guys against any of those teams, right? Like last year, the Warriors, you mentioned the records, and the Warriors, what were they were the 6th seed in the playoffs. They were the 6th seed in the entire Western Conference, and they were only in 4th in their division. The Clippers and them tied for 3rd, I guess. But so that just kind of proves your point. Every team in their division was over 500, and it would have probably been easier if you were in the Northwest, like the Nuggets, and you could beat up on the Trailblazers and the Jazz, or if you were in the Southwest, you could clean up on the Spurs and the Rockets. So Yeah, but it's good, I think, because if the Warriors are going to be a good team, like you play the good teams more, uh, you're gonna you not only are you gonna know those guys better, especially come playoffs, but you're gonna be sharper when it gets down to it, and so I'm totally fine with that. Um, I do hope that one of those teams could maybe fall off a little bit. I hope it's not the Warriors.
I
But
mean, we're
yeah,
looking at the Clippers, right? Like that's the biggest, the one that could, if the Harden thing doesn't fall through, and then the injury proneness of PG and Kawhi, that's the team that you can face them on that back-to-back night where it's just the Warriors versus Russ, and that's a likely possibility based on what we've seen from those guys, just them not being available.
All right. How much of this in-season tournament do you even understand at this point?
None. I know Richard Jefferson did the video explaining it. I barely watched it.
The reason why I wouldn't watch is because his voice is too high pitched. But okay, so I'm reading through the NBA.com description of what this is. So it says the inaugural in-season tournament will tip off Friday, November 3rd and culminate with the championship on Saturday, December 9th. The semifinals Thursday, December 7th, and championship will take place at T-Mobile. I wonder if that's going to be a hot ticket or hot tickets. Sounds pretty interesting. The in-season tournament will consist of 2 stages, group play and knockout rounds. The 30 teams were randomly drawn into groups of 5 within their conference based on win-loss records. So the Warriors got thrown in with like a bunch of random teams. Like it didn't have anything to do with divisions. It was all based around last year's win-loss record. And so the knockout rounds 8 teams will advance to the knockout rounds. The team with the best standing in group play games, in group play games in each of the 6 groups, and 2 wild cards. So best record of the rest of the teams. And then the knockout rounds will be single elimination in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship. So that's the cool part of it, which is we're so used to series in the playoffs. And then so you have these, this group play, and you all these teams play against each other, and the top 2 advance. And then you go into this into this single elimination tournament, which is actually a really cool idea and nothing that ever happens in basketball. I remember, I want to say in the early 80s, the first round of the playoffs was like 2 out of 3 games. But ever since I started watching, I think it was at least best of 5. So this is going to be super cool when it comes down to it. Now, the question I have, and that everyone probably has, is what is the reason for teams to want to win this thing, especially if you're dealing with early season injuries?
Yeah, I guess it's just whatever the incentive is. If it's like $1 million per player, I feel like even some of the players who make a ton of money would be intrigued by that, because what's Steph getting paid per? I know this doesn't account for endorsements, but is he on like $55 million per year?
Yeah, I mean it's either 50 or close to 50.
Like if it's $50 million per year that he makes, 1 million is 2% of his 2% of his annual player contract. Like, I don't know, if you presented me my yearly salary and said you can make 2% of it if you try a little hard in this event, I might do it.
I think I'd be out.
Yeah, I guess it's got to be, I don't know what it's got to be an incentive that not only I mean, you just have to find an incentive that incentivizes the big guys, the stars, because money's a tough one because they make so much money with their contracts, with their endorsements outside of the NBA, with all of that. Like, I just feel like that 80s or 90s mindset of like, it doesn't matter, I'm playing all 82 with a broken leg, is just like not there anymore, because we want to make sure these players are playing for as long as they can. So I feel like that mindset of the competitive hunger in their own different way has decreased a little. So I feel like you can't. It's hard to get these guys to care about something like this unless the incentive makes a lot of sense. And someone mentioned, I think someone on ESPN, I don't know if it was Bontemps, but he was like, "Oh, automatic playoffs And then it's like, okay, how do you incorporate that? Because then the team that gets automatic playoffs is like kind of coasting the rest of the way, you know, and it's, I don't even know how that would work. Like if the Warriors got automatic playoffs, is like, okay, CP and Steph, like take the rest of the year off and we'll see you, you know, even if we get the 8th seed, we like you guys on 50 games rest to have our best shot at this. I don't know.
Okay, this is so kind of hard to follow. So I already screwed this up. So they're not grouped based on record. Their pots were based on record. So they got put into 5 pots, and then so all the top teams that had the best records were in one pot, and then you kind of went down until you got to the pot 5. And then you were randomly picked for a group.
And was the pots were based on a record, and I feel like that works for this season. But last season, like when Utah dumped Mitchell and Rudy, would they have been based on the year before's record? But when really they're a team that is of the bottom pot, but they're put in the top pot, like.
And then I think that's why they still randomize it from there. Yeah. So so who do the Warriors play in their grouping here? The Kings, who are a top team, probably going to be a top team again this year. The Timberwolves, who were a 500 team, but should be better, especially with Ant Evans, who we'll talk about in a second.
And Edwards.
What did I say?
Evans.
Oh, that he's actually he used to work for the UFC. Ant Evans. And the Thunder, who were below 500, but should be much better too.
Yeah, they're not a below 500 team, it feels like.
And then the Spurs, who were terrible, but should be at least a little bit better with Wembanyama. So the Warriors are not in an easy group, I don't think. I think they're in a very competitive group here.
Yeah. Did any West group get? So there's 3 teams that I think we can probably shoe in as teams that are going to try and rebuild. Like Utah, I don't expect much from them this year. I don't. You know what? They could be doing a little bit of something. Now they went and got John Collins. But okay, what's Houston? Even Houston, yeah, no. Everyone kind of reloaded in the West. Like the only obvious rebuilding teams is if the Portland Trailblazers get rid of Dame.
And I think the reason why they do this so early in the season is because teams aren't tanking yet.
Yeah,
because if you do it late in the season. And then some teams are just ravaged by injuries and they're just not trying. So you do want to do it before.
The West is insane. Now that when you think about it, like for the East, I feel like there's a few more teams like Washington, who we probably could easily say is not a playoff team. Charlotte, we could easily say is not a playoff team. I think the Magic will find a tough time making the playoffs. Like they feel like they have more teams, whereas like a lot of the teams in the West are really shooting for at least a play-in spot.
Yep.
So, damn.
Yeah. So the prize the prize pool will be allocated to the players on the teams that participate in the knockout rounds, with allocations increasing depending on how far a team progresses. At the conclusion, the NBA will name the most valuable player of the competition and an all-tournament team. Selection will be based on the player's performance in both group play and knockout rounds. Let's just hope they don't name this after players like they started naming all the awards that they give out. The Jerry West Award and all of these different awards.
I think it'd be fun. Like, say some random player goes off, like this is Karis LeVert Award. That'd be fun.
Well, Lou Will said that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He said him and who was the other guy?
Crawford.
Yeah, he said they both should. So maybe they should be the names of the awards. I think it's a fun idea. And I think it'll create some early season interest where maybe NBA fans are not even really paying attention yet because
it's still football season.
Yeah, it's still football season. So there will, and if you get those games marketed well, like that's really going to be what the key is you got to market the tournament well so that people feel like it's special. And then the first one, it has to be good. Like you have to have LeBron. Like I would just, if I'm Adam Silver, I'd just be like, hey man, we just need you to market the hell out of this. You need to talk about how important it is on Instagram. We're going to do interviews with you. You're going to talk about how this is like a pioneering idea for the league and you want to be at the top. Because Bill Simmons keeps saying this guy's going to get the Las Vegas franchise when he retires. So maybe there's just part of the deal. Hey, You're gonna get this thing. You just got to do some work for us here. Because if people feel like this tournament is just an also ran kind of thing, then next year it's just going to be dead. So this year's really
they got to go
important.
all out. Yep.
Yeah, they got to go all out. And I kind of wonder though, if you were in summer league this year, and I know you're not a Vegas guy. I wouldn't say I'm a Vegas guy, though I've been a lot. I'm a Vegas guy for like a day and a half, and then I'm ready to come home. But if they do something for NBA media, that conference that they were doing, the NBA Con, podcast stuff, if they really, really market this as like a really cool place for content creators, it doesn't sound like a bad idea to just see it. Just what is this thing? We're kind of at the first NBA tournament. I don't know, kind of intrigued.
That's how I felt with
no.
That's how I felt with NBA Con though. I was like, "Ooh, first one, we got to do it." It sucked.
Yeah, but you were way more interested in the summer league games though.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I would totally be intrigued to do it. I'd be intrigued to go.
But you got to see what your friends think. Maybe we can get maybe we can get your uncle to come. I don't know. I don't know if he'd be willing to come to, but it'd be fun just to get a couple people and just to see what it's like. I would imagine those tickets are probably pretty expensive though for those knockout round games. Or no, it's the semifinals and the finals. I guess will be in Vegas.
Yeah.
And because there's limited tickets, right? There's only there would only be 3 games, I guess. So you
would they? I wonder where they're playing. Would they wouldn't throw them in the UNLV thing?
No,
again?
T-Mobile.
Okay.
Yeah, it's T-Mobile. All right, let's talk about these. I don't know how closely you paid attention, if at all, but The Athletic and Seth Partnow, every year he puts out this players tiers. So he takes the top 125 players and groups them into 5 tiers. And I thought it was interesting, not that I completely understand how he's ranking these guys, but I sort of looked at it as an exercise in how many of the top 125 players do the Warriors actually have.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I looked at the list, I thought
they probably have 5, huh?
So I'll tell you here in a second, but it's not. Basically, what I was paying attention to was it wasn't even really about how highly Steph was ranked. It was about how low everybody else was ranked. Like, because you think of Wiggins, right? And you're like, oh, like he's the perfect player for the Warriors. Like everything he does is everything that the Warriors need. He doesn't ask for the basketball constantly. Like he's a team player. He does a lot of the hard stuff. And then I look at what his tier is, and I'm like, oh, they have him in the 4th tier. So it's like the 5th tier is, I don't know exactly what it is, but the tiers actually, once you get to like the last two tiers are like 24 players or something like that. So the way that it worked is Klay Thompson bringing up the rear in tier 5. Like he barely made the tier 5, obviously because of his last year's season, but it made me think, and we've talked about this a little bit. I think Klay Thompson is going into the season completely underrated. And it doesn't have to do with the age thing necessarily. It has to do with the fact that these knee injuries, and not only him, he had the knee and the Achilles injury. Usually it takes, 2 years for you to come back at full strength. And it will be 2 years for him by mid-season. And that's why I think that he is going to have a bounce back year. Now, that is basically me saying that his shot selection was frustration for not having his legs, and he was needing to put up shots to match points that he was expecting. And I think a lot of these things will be more fluid for him and less forced. Because when I look at Klay Thompson as a tier 5 player, I think they're sliding my guy here a little bit. And we were his biggest critics as well as his biggest fans, the way that he played in the playoffs last year. But what do you think about Klay as a tier 5 guy?
The thing is that Seth Partnow is pretty he's a pretty numbers type of analyst.
A lot of this is analytics based for sure.
I'm sure there's a ton of advanced analytics that come up into making this list, but what kind of confuses me is that Klay on paper during the regular season had an above top 75 player type of stat line. So it's interesting to see that whatever his breakdown was didn't value Klay's regular season as much because you say Klay Thompson was bad last year. He was bad in the playoffs. He had a pretty solid regular season from what I remember. 20-something points per game. Maybe
not
was probably
greatly
low.
efficient, yeah.
It's probably 40-something%, maybe low 40s. Even then, though, I think it's pretty common amongst a lot of players. But yeah, I just feel like with Klay, though, it's his whole career, it's kind of been this shot jacker who plays excellent defense two-way. And it's he kind of still hasn't really changed the shot selection, but defense has gone down and the shot making ability seems to have gone down a little bit. And I don't know if that's a one-off year, but yeah, I feel like if there's something to look forward to, I actually feel like he was starting to guard wings a little better. And then maybe, it just feels like it feels like him putting up his shot selection just feels like it needs to get better, but it feels like that's taking away something from Klay that makes Klay. So it's just his green light that he has.
The analytics that he is using is something called minutes per win.
He probably created that.
He says it's an estimate based on a blend of 3 seasons of estimated plus minus. Thanks to Taylor Snar of dunksandthrees.com for letting me use and abuse his metric. And the 3-season version of NBA's shotcharts.com's RAPM model. An average NBA player will create a win about every 485 to 490 minutes or so. There are 480 minutes played between both teams in a regulation game, and factoring in overtime periods adds a little to that number. So I'm not even going to pretend that I understand any of this. He also uses regularized adjusted plus minus. So I think what this means is he's projecting that Klay is just going to continue to get worse, is the deal. But here's the other thing. And I don't know if this is a big deal or not, especially to Klay. But Klay's big on sort of respect and people judging his game and stuff. This is the last year of his contract, correct?
Correct.
So he's essentially playing for another deal, whether that happens with the Warriors or not. I think there's going to be a little incentive for Klay to clean it up a little bit this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that, we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast, so I'm going to make it quick. But last year he said that he had a mental block from playing off-season ball, 5-on-5 ball in the previous off-season. So they won the championship, and he didn't want to really do as much working out that summer because he was like, I don't want to get hurt again, and I'm just a little scared. And then he came into the season a little sloppy and a little slow. I've sent you and Ben a couple clips now. The guy's been working out. The guy's been doing some of those not tournaments, but some of those runs that that look a little corny and cheesy that you see all the NBA players do. He's been working out with J-Law, who's worked out with Giddy and Dyson Daniels a lot. He did the Chris Brickley gym stuff with Kevin Love. Speaking of, man, why the guy should have gotten us Kevin Love this offseason. It seemed like they're tight. Maybe he'll get us PG. But no, I think that if there is a year to bet on Klay, to kind of break the trend of him continuing to decrease, it would be this year. But I could see from the, just the regular fan base perspective, or just if I was a betting man and I didn't have any allegiance to the Warriors, I'd probably continue to bet on Klay continuing to go down just based on what we've seen. But, being a Warriors fan and trying to be optimistic about this stuff, I think it does mean a great deal of Klay doing this offseason stuff that should come ready to go. And, you hope with the addition of Chris Paul, he gets a lot more better looks than having to create his own looks, because what Jordan Poole wasn't able to provide in the playoffs, it seems like Klay tried to pick up a bulk of that. JP not being able to get anything going well, they needed another shot creator, and Klay was like, I could do it. So maybe hopefully these are some of the right additions to elevate him.
Other players in this tier, and I'll name the Warriors players in this tier too. Other players, guys like Dylan Brooks, DeAndre Hunter, Anthony Simons, Jordan Poole, also in tier 5A, Russ, Spencer Dinwiddie,
They ranked, or is it just in the tier?
These guys are all in the tier.
Okay.
He did not singularly rank them. Kevin Huerter, Kevon Looney, also in this tier. And there's
Looney made it. Okay,
yeah,
so we probably have 6 in the top 125.
Yeah, we have 6 in the top 125. Malik Monk, Gary Payton.
Wow,
the second
Monk feels low. Oh, so 7
Gary
players.
Payton. So now we got 7. Yeah, so we'll have 7.
What the hell?
That's not bad, right? Like,
it's not bad.
7 players out of the top 125 is a pretty good number. I wish I did this and sort of figured out what team had the most players inside the 125. I wonder if he has he may have a list where he kind of summarized.
I think you'd be shocked. I would not be surprised if we were like number 1, or maybe the Lakers were kind of close, because like Denver's team, I'm sure they don't have more than 5.
Yeah,
and they're the champs. Boston's probably a team that would probably be in that range too.
All right, so in the 4th tier, this is Chris Paul. So Chris Paul, going back to 2020, was in the between the 2nd and 3rd tier all the way until last year, when he made the drop from tier 2 to tier 3, and now is at tier 4. So this is another one where, kind of like Klay, I think the guesstimation or the projections is that play is going to lessen, and that's kind of what happens.
That's got to be what it is.
Yeah. So some other guys in this tier, Brandon Ingram. Surprisingly, I thought he'd be a tier 3 guy. Same with Sabonis. I thought Sabonis would be a tier 3 guy. Andrew Wiggins is a tier 4 guy. Now, Andrew Wiggins has actually gone upward from the last few years, according to this metric or this table or whatever you want to call it, this analysis. He was a tier 5 guy all the way back to July of 2020. Other folks in this tier, Desmond Bane, Kristaps, Aaron Gordon, Karl Anthony Towns, surprisingly a 4B player. So he actually split them up for 4A and 4B. Cat, a 4B player. That's surprising, because you would think, especially the way that he's paid, that he would have to be in like the top 1 or the top 2 or 3 tiers. Other players, Marcus Smart, DeAndre Ayton, Cade Cunningham, and you gotta think Cade Cunningham's about to make
what the
leap.
hell? Yeah, if these are like kind of projections or predictions, I would think Cade would have been higher.
Josh Giddey as well
higher
in this tier. And our guy, well, the guy that we love, except when he plays the Warriors, Keegan Murray, is also in tier 4. He split them into 3 different buckets. So these guys are 4C. I don't even understand what those buckets are. But then we get to tier 3. And tier 3, Ant Edwards, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell. So you're talking about, some really quality basketball players. Jaren Jackson.
Yeah, no
Trae
way
Young.
Andrew Wiggins is going to make this one. Now that you look at who's in it, right?
Yeah. Kyrie Irving, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and one Draymond Green.
Good job,
Draymond. He was in 3A as of July 20th or July 2020. He is now in the 3B range, so he's in 3B. Zion Williamson's in 3B, and guys like Halliburton and Bridges and LaMelo are in 3C.
Ooh.
So now we get to the top 20 some odd people in these tiers. LeBron James, tier 2A. Kawhi Leonard, tier 2A. Talk about finals MVPs. Jimmy Butler, 2A. Jason Tatum, 2A. Devin Booker, 2A. Anthony Davis, Ja Morant, Damian Lillard, James Harden 2B. Or no, sorry, James Harden's 2C. Damian Lillard 2B.
Thank God. I was about to say Damian Lillard and James Harden should not be in the same stratosphere right now.
James Harden, Paul George, Jamal Murray, Shea, SGA, all in 2C. So that takes us to the top 6 here. In tier 1,
it's gonna be
tier 1B, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid. Tier 1A, Jokic, Giannis, and Steph.
Hell yeah.
So
that's how we did our top 25 players. I think we did. I fought for Jokic number 1. This was last year going into this last season. So last summer going into the next season. But we had Giannis, Jokic, Steph. I fought for Jokic, Giannis, Steph. But look at that. Still.
All right. So Steph, according to the analysts, still in the upper echelon of valuable players. I'm surprised that well, you know what I'm surprised about? I feel like if this analysis was a little bit more flashy, like if this was done on ESPN more, the LeBron haters would be coming at Steph right now, something crazy.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, not the LeBron haters, the LeBron fans. De'Aaron Fox,
at least tier 3.
De'Aaron Fox was in.
Just command it.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox was 3A.
Yeah, even that feels. Yeah, I guess that sounds right.
Well, they are taking like a few years of data, not just like last year. Version.
It just feels like if you're doing projections, I feel like they are a little low on like Halliburton. I think this is an all NBA season for Halliburton. I think this is a top 7 MVP campaign for Anthony Edwards. I think this is another. I don't know if Shea Gilgeous-Alexander can take another leap from 30 points per game, but I think he does it again at like 27 at least and is able to make the playoffs really. So I don't know, some of those guys, like I think I'd rather have SGA than Harden for sure. So
have you followed any of the FIBA stuff yet? Okay. Do you know that on the website, the FIBA website, is a picture of SGA and Team Canada?
They're stacked.
I was like looking at it going like, wait, Team Canada? Like who's on Team Canada? And I had to steady his face for like about 10 seconds. I was like, oh, that's SGA. I didn't even realize that he was Canadian.
Yeah, him, RJ Barrett, and if they had Wiggins, I don't know why Wiggins didn't play. That would have been a really nice team.
Yeah, well, Wiggins is, I'm sure.
Wiggins usually plays it.
Well, I'm sure he's going to play the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure he'll play the Olympics. All right, so the only thing that sucks about these the World Cup is that these games, because they're playing them in the Philippines, the games are on so early in the morning. I think Team USA plays Saturday, but it's like at 5:40 a.m. So that is a rough one.
I'm just gonna have to record it.
Yeah, but how are you not going to find out what happens?
I know. What do you think's gonna happen? Have you seen our pool? Like those teams suck. So, no offense to the other countries, but it's New Zealand, Jordan, and
you're talking about the groups?
Yeah, our pool. It's New Zealand, Jordan, and Greece without Giannis, right?
Well, I mean, this is group play. This is kind of what the in-season tournament's going to be like, where you get stuck in the groups and it's the top 2 or whatever finishers outside of the group go to the next round.
I'm just saying, like, we should clear these 3 games.
So I don't know these the Greece team.
We beat them in exhibition.
So I can't tell. I think Giannis's brother is on this team, but
Two brothers, both of them.
I can't figure out if anybody else has played in the NBA. The Jordan team, I don't think anybody. Oh, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, actually, he's he's an NBA player, so he's on that team. And then in New Zealand, I don't recognize any of these names. So yeah, I mean, Team USA should really clean up in this group. What do you think about the actual roster, though? Do you like the fit?
I do. I feel like most people, I don't know, I don't want to group people, but you see that roster and you're like, ooh, no LeBron, no KD, no Steph. no Tatum, no Damian Lillard, no James Harden. Like, oh, this team's gonna suck. But no, these are guys who are up and coming stars who Steve Kerr put together a team that fits together. Like, of course he picked Mikal Bridges to start. Like, that's such a Steve Kerr guy. Of
Yeah,
course,
he's
Jaren
watched that
Jackson is
guy
the five.
hound Steph Curry
Yeah.
for how many years now?
Exactly. I think the team fits together really well. And I was expecting Halliburton to be starting, but it's Brunson, and I kind of like it. Like,
he may end up like, kind of how D Wade was like the leading scorer that one year, even though he came off the bench. Halliburton may actually play better than Brunson.
Yeah,
even though
maybe he
starting.
closes. I wouldn't be surprised if Halliburton doesn't start but closes. I think
Yeah, they
Steve
might
Kerr,
play him together because Halliburton's big.
and they're both really smart players. But Brunson, I think, is very like a very slow type of like Luka. The very slow, bring the ball up slow. Gets into the offense a little slow. Where Halliburton's all go go go. He's Mr. Pace. While he resembles the Kings, while Jalen Brunson resembles the Chris Paul slow type of point guard. So they kind of balance each other out and counteract each other really well. But you talk about a starting
De'Aaron
lineup,
Fox would have been fun on this team.
Oh my god, man! I'm more people. I'm ready for De'Aaron Fox. I think Steph should sign De'Aaron Fox. We talked about it briefly, but Steph should sign De'Aaron Fox as the first signature athlete to that Curry brand.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But then again, is he going to want to be under Big Brother though? That would be another.
He wore his shoes the entire playoffs. That already is kind of
that's true. I think the only thing that's really missing from this team is
the bona fide alpha.
I think Edwards kind of turned into that, and plus in Brunson, he's kind of an underrated. Brunson played with Luka, and he was like, "Nope, I'm taking this shot, dude." So he's got that little dog in him. And so I think that works. I think I would say they're missing a scoring big. Like Jaren Jackson is athletic and he's going to defend, but you're not going to, like, if you need a bucket, like he's not going to get that bucket. It's more likely going to be Brunson or Edwards. If they had,
is there any more good American scoring bigs? Like Cat's playing for the Dominican, that's the only one I could think of. American Anthony Davis, he's not going to play this.
Well, the one spot that seems to be kind of like the odd spot is Paolo.
Yeah,
he's such a young player. He's not super efficient yet, and he's probably going to get lost a little bit on this roster. But if you had like one guy you could just put in the paint and get a bucket, I think that would round out this team. Looking at the rest of these rosters, Lithuania, Valanciunas is playing. So is I guess I thought this was another NBA player, but I don't think so. Montejunas is playing.
Mm-mm.
Those are wasn't Montejunas the guy who was so sweaty against the Warriors that he caused Steph Curry to sprain his knee in 16? Wasn't that who that was?
I don't remember that.
I think it was. I think it was with the Rockets in that thing. Like he was so sweaty that he hits the floor and then he creates like this big wet spot, and that's how Steph hurts his knee, is because of that wet spot.
Are you do you want to talk about like the teams with like that are good, or do you want to go all the way down? Because what we should talk about is the Warriors that will be on these teams, because I think we have 3 guys who are playing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have Saric on Croatia, we have Lester Quinones on the Dominican, and we have Gui Santos on Brazil.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. Wait, because I was looking through the roster, just looking for.
It's because you won't notice Guy's name on there. I told you about this. It's like Guilherme.
Oh, wow. I guess I got a possible, if it's possible, to watch some of these other teams.
Yeah. I heard shoot, I just said his name. Croatia, Saric. I heard he was playing well. I heard he was playing really well.
What about Team Australia?
They're good. I think Team Australia is the one I'm worried about the most.
Dyson Daniels, Matisse Thybulle, Josh Giddey, Patty Mills, Josh Green, Joe Ingles, Dante Exum,
Jock Landale.
Is he on that team? I don't see him on this roster.
Oh.
Germany, they already beat Germany. Mo Wagner. What about the other Wagner?
Franz,
he is on that team.
He is on that team. He was really good.
There you go.
And then Schroeder, But yeah, it's Australia is a threat. They just passed the ball really well. I was able to watch Australia versus France, France is supposed to be, like the number 2, who's supposed to, and Australia seemed like they were taking care of them pretty easily. And it was a close game, but it felt like Australia was making a lot of dumb mistakes, and they were still able to come back. But Australia looks really good. There's France, and then there is Germany, like you mentioned. There's Slovenia with Luka, and that team just relies on Luka playing. I think Team Canada is probably number 2 or number 3 threat. So I'd say my personal list is USA 1, Australia 2, Canada 3, France 4. And then that 5 spot is kind of like I still need to see more, whether it's Germany, whether it's Slovenia, whether it's, I don't know if the Dominican makes any noise with Cat, or the
Spain?
Bahamas, Spain.
Rudy Fernandez is still playing for Spain at age 38. Holy cow. And Willie Hernan Gomez is playing
both.
I
think Juancho's playing
and
too.
And Juancho too. Holy cow.
That's not that good of a team, though. That's not the Gasol brothers. That's not Ricky Rubio.
Yeah,
that's,
no Ricky Rubio.
That's the Hernan Gomez brothers, who are just barely get any run in the NBA as it is.
Okay, so let's look at Canada. Lou Dort, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Dwight Powell, RJ Barrett, Kelly Olynyk, Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks, Canadian?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty good team.
It's a good squad.
And then you mentioned France, Rudy Gobert,
Fournier,
Evan Fournier, Latvia, Lebanon. Wow, there's so many teams. Okay, here's my dark horse. Okay, I'm going to give you my dark horse. And you remember how in the WBC, I was just, well, I don't know if you remember, but I bought a Team USA hat because I could find it. Mm-hmm. But I was looking for like Team Japan, like hats or
Please don't
whatever.
Tell me Japan's your dark horse with Yudai Baba.
Watanabe, baby. Watanabe. Watanabe is going to be like a 30-point scorer in this. Who's in his group? It's Group E, Australia. So that's
oh god,
Finland.
Isn't that Lauri
Markkinen? Yeah, Lauri Markkinen's in Finland. Germany.
That's a tough.
And Japan.
That is a tough pool. They are going 0-3.
That is a rough one. Yeah, because so in this Wikipedia page, you can see the team that they all play for. And so if you have an NBA team, then they show the team. So for instance, Germany, Tice for the Pacers, Wagner for the Magic, Schroeder for the Raptors. For Japan, it is Watanabe, Phoenix Suns, and then it is a bunch of guys from like the Yokohama B Corsairs and the Chiba Jets, Funabashi, and the Shinsu Brave Warriors.
Former G League Warrior. We talked about him.
Yeah, he played for the Texas Legends last year. The Texas Legends are a G League team, so I guess that's still NBA connected. So
what about the Bahamas? That's a team. I think they got Eric Gordon, DeAndre Ayton, Buddy Hield, and there's one more I think that I'm forgetting. But I wonder if they can make some noise. I'm still trying to
even make the tournament.
Oh man, did they not?
Yeah, because I'm looking at the I'm looking at the list of all of the teams, and I do not see the Bahamas.
Maybe just look up Ayton.
Yeah, I can't find them on this list unless this Wikipedia page is not complete, which I think it's complete. But
interesting.
Who knows? Anyways, this should be pretty fun. It'll tide us over. We're in this weird spot in the calendar where, it's sort of the dog days of baseball, of the summer, end of the summer. If we're in crappy preseason football, everyone's scheduling their fantasy football drafts, and then basketball, we're still about a month and a half away. So this is a interesting time. Maybe we'll get a little bit of FIBA going on. And yeah, it should be fun. It's just going to be so hard to watch this stuff because of the times.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you think what is the Olympics? Is it in 2 or 3 years then?
I think it's next year.
Okay. Oh, the Olympics is next year.
I think so.
In where is it again? Oh, we just talked about this. Is it like France?
Why are you going to go?
No, but
you want to travel, man.
I'm wondering
Paris. It's in Paris.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if we get Steph and LeBron, if they do it. It's the last chance to do it.
I expect
Steph to do it.
I think you get Steph, you get LeBron,
you get KD. Ooh.
And you may, and
You're
because
getting
of those,
Draymond. You're
yeah,
getting
because of
Draymond.
those connections, I think you get Draymond too.
And because Steve Kerr's the coach, you get Draymond. These guys, that would be interesting from this FIBA team is who kind of makes that impression to Steve that he should be on the big team in 2
I
years.
think Ant definitely.
I'm looking at Ant and I'm looking at Bridges, Jaren Jackson, and Halliburton. That's what I'm looking at.
I don't know. Jaren Jackson, he might get in a fight with.
Just plays
Draymond.
the role well. Him and Draymond are really close. Because it's Michigan connection, right? Or Michigan State? Michigan State connection.
No, yeah, that's a great point. Steph, that's the one thing that he hasn't checked off. Well, I mean, he didn't win an NCAA title, but that's very rare for a lot of these players.
Wonder if CP does it?
Nah, I think he's too old by then. I mean, maybe he's like.
But is it just one of those where it's like, I know I'm probably not good enough anymore, but I have the leeway and I have the say because my name is Chris Paul. I'm a member of the Golden State Warriors and I'm friends with Stephen Curry and LeBron.
We'll see if he's friends with Stephen Curry by the end of this season.
True.
All right. So if there is stuff, we will try to be back next week. But if not, I'm totally fine with us doing this every 2 weeks thing. I mean, this is what Rod and I are doing on We Want Winners until the actual games start. So well, actually, and we've been back actually these last couple of weeks because there have been preseason games, and we'll be back tomorrow night, Friday night after 49ers Chargers. But yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine doing this every 2 weeks. But if there's news, then we'll try and get back every week. So yeah, fun show. We kind of created a show out of thin air, and thank you to
Thanks, Stephen A.
Yeah, and the Gilbert Arenas podcast.
Yeah.
All right. For Brian, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace.